Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Spilled Popcorn, the web series where we dive into the latest and greatest TV shows and movies of our time. Here to spill that popcorn with me once again is Cam Possible.
What's going on?
And I am Kerplunk, here to chat about episode 2, Dose of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You see, if you've caught on to our web series for the first time today, we have done the entire series of WandaVision as our debut series, and now we're going hard into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So Cam, we're 2 episodes in. There's only 6 episodes, so that means 4 to go. Do you have a sense already where this story is going?
I mean, I have senses about certain things.
Okay.
I don't think I have a total sense of like where this ends, but I'm picking up a little bit of what they're laying down here.
Yeah. So you're seeing the crumbs. You're seeing the foundation being laid here.
Yeah. But I still have some questions about. I think I said last episode that I expect Sam to end up as Captain America by the end of the show. I don't know if this episode helps or hurts that theory. This episode was interesting for a lot of different reasons. They dropped a lot of different scents, but nothing that really leads me towards like what is the ultimate resolution going to look like. So I'm still very intrigued at this point.
I gotcha. I think you're on the right path. That has to be his story arc, right? That has to be it, that he will pick up the shield once more by the end of this 6-episode arc. At least one would hope, right? I don't see how they get out of this without him grabbing that shield and throwing it straight at the camera. But maybe they'll do it. Maybe they've got something else up their sleeve, as they often do. But let's dive in. I want to talk about the unwrapping of this episode so we can remember what happened.
Let's unwrap it.
That was the loudest unwrapping we've had.
It might be. It's a new record.
Took that way too close to the microphone. And I'm going to try to wear this Captain America mask throughout the entire unwrapping. Let's see.
And you'll have a stress fracture on your skull by the end of it, probably.
That's right. And for the second half of the episode, I will have lines all across my face, which will also be very exciting. So this episode is pretty straightforward, I have to say. Pretty straightforward. We start with a flashback of not too far back, but just a brief resettling of what's going on with John Walker. John Walker is played by Wyatt Russell, aka Kurt Russell's son. So that's kind of nuts because, as we know, Kurt Russell played Ego over in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Pretty fun stuff happening there. I wonder if we'll get his half-sister Kate Hudson to join the MCU, and Goldie Hawn, let's bring her into the fold.
Let's just complete the whole group. Maybe they could be the Fantastic Four. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. I love that.
They can't be. There's a lot of reasons that they can't be, but we won't go there.
That's fine. But we start with more exposition. So we're in a bit of an exposition rut with this show, 2 episodes in. Obviously, we need exposition in every single episode to drive the plot forward, to know where we were coming from and where we're going. But usually we have a bit more of creativity with Marvel's MCU style. I'm not seeing that just yet. I'm not seeing that. Despite this, their intro to this episode is golden. It's golden. It's unique. It's creative. It's fun. And we see John Walker. He's donning the suit of Captain America. He's a little concerned. He's worried that he's not worthy of it, but he knows it's the job. He knows he's been selected, and he's going to do his best. So I love the vibe that's coming off of that. Now, I was mortified of how Wyatt Russell looked in episode 1 at the end of it with that mask on. Similar to the meme that we shared on our Discord channel of what it looked like. Cam, can you share the comparison? What was it?
Oh, with the guy from Up?
Carl from Up.
Yeah,
that's
Carl,
right.
yeah.
They like slapped that on his face and it just looked identical. And that's exactly what Wyatt Russell looked like at the end of episode 1. But for some reason in episode 2 doesn't look like that. I probably look like that right now a little bit because it's very squishy. The mask is very squishy. It's the
chin strap, man. I don't know. The chin strap wasn't doing him any favors. I think he does wear the chin strap in this one, but it must have been laying better this time. I don't know.
Right, right. Maybe the intention was to make you to like push it forward to really squish his beautiful jawline, brought to you by Kurt Russell, his dad. So we'll see. We'll see if that continues. But he's looking good. I dig his vibe. I dig his style. And there's also these weird traces of his hidden agenda. Very brief, very sprinkled in, but very intentional, I will say. So that was kind of nice to see. Not that he's in it for the wrong reasons, because that's why we had that nice flashback at the beginning. But I sense that there's, more about John Walker than I do, but maybe there's like a sleeper, I don't know, Manchurian candidate thing going on here. That's what my first gut feeling is.
I think they're just trying to tell us like this is not Steve Rogers. This is a guy. He probably has the right intention, but he is different. He has a different way of handling his business. And so we're going to continue to learn more about that. So I actually, like you said, I really like what they're doing with this character. I really like the performance from Wyatt Russell, who I thought was far and away the standout performer of this episode. And I'm excited to see where he goes.
Excellent, excellent. We get a big, long fight scene against the Flag Smashers on the top of a train. That's kind of the feature of this episode. The other big pieces of this episode is we meet a secret super soldier named Isaiah, which Bucky had met in a previous war. I believe it was the Korean War. And basically, he kept him a secret from everyone, hadn't told anyone about it. So kind of a sneaky tactic by Marvel to be like, oh, look, here's one. But at the same time, I love the actor playing Isaiah, so I'm fine with it as long as we get more of him throughout the rest of the series. Then we also have a portion of this where Amy Aquino, the therapist, she has got them both in therapy. Kind of some good gimmicky fun where they press their knees together and they have to stare each other in the eyes and go through some kind of couples therapy, Bucky and Sam Wilson. And we get to like the bottom of their true feelings. I feel like we could have got a little bit deeper there. It's still a little surface level, but I'm hoping that we extrapolate on that. See, I can't talk because the mask is squeezing my brain
squeezing the
so
thoughts.
tight.
Yeah, going back to like your whole too much exposition thing. This is something that I've had a problem with this show is like them trying to make the Bucky and Sam Wilson feud a thing still. Like, I don't see why that's really necessary. I mean, they had it in Civil War. It made sense then. Sam was obviously not eager to trust Bucky based on his whole Winter Soldier shenanigans, which makes sense. But like now, they fought side by side numerous times. They were enemies of the state together. Like, they have been through it. I'm surprised that we're still going through this path. And to be frank, it's not ultra believable. It's just not at this point. Like I thought that those scenes where they're like duking it out were like among the less believable scenes in the whole episode.
Definitely. I think that in Civil War, some of the best comedic timing I've seen throughout the entire MCU. We see them in the back of the car while Cap is out chatting with someone.
Sharon.
Sharon. That's right. And he's like, "Can you move your seat up?" He's like, "No." And then Bucky says, Sam Wilson says, "I hate you."
Yeah, it's great. Like that whole bit is great. And like I said, like it makes sense there. But now it's like they even had they shared that intimate moment at the end of Endgame with Steve Rogers where he's like, everybody was sort of expecting Bucky to get the shield and Sam gets it. Like, I just don't understand where the beef is. I guess it's because Sam gave up the shield and so now there's new beef there, but it's just like, you guys have fought together. You guys are Avengers. Like, let's figure this out.
Right. I feel like in WandaVision, we got such a deeper dive on an emotional level, but maybe it's because we had a woman at the realm and we've got these two guys who are afraid to really share their feelings and really be able to express how they feel. But at the same time, they are some pretty big talkers. They speak a lot. So we got to get there fast. We got to get there quickly. I don't want to see any more of these little quips at each other unless they're like short ones and to the point, like basically like ribbing each other for like maybe a fight move or something. That's okay. But if it's the entire episode, it loses its specialness. You're spot on right there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just like you said, we're a third of the way through the show. Like, We got a boogie.
We do. So let's talk about the butter now. I want to talk about the meat of this episode and kind of what the foundation was laid as the next steps of this story, of this 6-episode arc. There's no shortage of action. And what's best about that is MCU has always had fantastic stunt coordinators, stunt choreographers, fight choreographers. What did you think about the fights in this episode?
I thought they were superb. I think this is where this show continues to excel. I think as an action show, it's top notch. I mean, it's better than what you see in most television series from an action perspective. It's well shot. It's really high production value. So I'm loving that. And I think because it was less episodes and probably will end up being a little bit shorter on runtime than WandaVision was when all said and done too, even though WandaVision was like closer to 30-minute episodes. They got to pour a little bit more of that budget into the fight sequences. And, like this one, they're fighting on top of those like semi-trucks and, hanging onto the side of them. And it's just sick. So I love it. I think as long as they keep that going every episode, I'll keep coming back.
I loved how many cars that they destroyed. Like they kept, getting like kicked off cars and landing on the windshields.
Landing on cars, yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, I loved it. I absolutely loved that part. But I'm thinking, like, if you're driving and you see all these people standing up on a train, why are you getting so close? Because they were total strangers every single time. You never saw the driver. And I was like, how is this happening? I love it. It's a great shot. And it caught me off guard, I think, all 3 times that it happened. But I'm like, dude, also, back up off that train.
Yeah. And also, I feel like at one point, if I remember correctly, John Walker, like, throws Lamar Hoskins onto the hood of a car as like a soft landing. And I'm like, dude, if he's being thrown off of one moving vehicle onto another moving vehicle that's going like 45 miles an hour plus, like nothing about that landing is soft.
No. Man, I love that we got so much of the shield throw in this episode as well. That was super cool. You get to see John Walker's training as kind of like a brief kind of documentary style of him like throwing it against different targets. That was super cool. I love that Bucky caught it with his vibranium arm, throwback to Winter Soldier. Very fun stuff that they're throwing in there. And those are the things that we want to see with new action, new plot development, new especially character development. Because when we think back to WandaVision, we think of who we know, Scarlet Witch, who we know as Wanda Maximoff. Where we know her from Endgame to the end of WandaVision are 2 completely different people.
Absolutely.
And that's even before we hit episode 4. We're like, what's going on? Who is this? We get so much new stuff in each of those intimate moments between her and Vision. So we're not getting that just yet. And you have to compare it because it's the second launch.
It's the only proxy we have, man. It's all we've got.
And it's almost like, they did it so perfectly in that show. They got to get there here too. So they've got some catching up to do. One thing that they introduced in this particular episode is potentially the big bad of this series. He could be a big bad, but he could also be turned into like a villain turned ally, a la Loki in some of the MCU movies, as well as we get Zemo. He is back. Setup kind of weak. He's locked in a cell. Do we have an idea, Cam, of from the comics of what Zemo can be and is to the Avengers post capture?
I mean, I always view Zemo as a big bad. I mean, I think he's one of the biggest bads. He ends up becoming a superhuman through later on through the Moonstones in a weirder plot line. He gets superhuman abilities, so I don't know if they'll go that route here, but he is one of the more prominent villains. I mean, he's a villain that even casual comic fans, I think, tend to know that name and know that look of the purple face mask. So yeah, he's a real threat, an Avengers level threat. I think we learned that in Civil War. So I was surprised to hear that they were going to go, they kind of teed up at the end as they're going to go talk to Zemo, because the Flag Smashers appear to be a group of superhumans. And if there's anybody who knows superhumans better than anybody, it would be Zemo, based on his exploits from Captain America Civil War and before that. But I'm very intrigued by this because if anyone should super hate Zemo, it should be Bucky, because Bucky was framed for the explosion at the UN
Right.
that killed, King T'Chaka. So it's like, I don't know. I was surprised that that's how we get intro to Zemo in this, but I'm definitely intrigued to see where they go.
Right. And so at the end of Civil War, we see Zemo just off all of those super soldiers, like in that little temple thing. Right. So now we know we have Isaiah out here who's been living as a refugee, essentially. And of course, we have Bucky, and now we have the Flag Smashers. We have a super soldier within their team. Where's the serum coming from is one of the questions that they ask. Who is producing this? Is this our introduction to X-Men, somehow wrapped in Winter Soldier and Falcon?
It could be. I mean, I think the X-Men have their hands in everything that has to do with Marvel. That's why it's so funny. I think any of these stories could tie in the X-Men because they're such a prominent piece, and it's actually hilarious to think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has made it this far without even the slightest mention of the X-Men so far. So yeah, definitely. I think what I'm watching for is that over the course of the comics, there are multiple different attempts to recreate the original, superhuman serum. So this could be one of those offshoots. This could be, any number of things. And, they go out of their way to say that John Walker is not an enhanced individual, which I find very interesting because in the comics, he does have superpowers. He gets them through one of those offshoot superhero serum groups called Power Broker. So maybe this becomes a thirst for power thing for John Walker at some point. His real motive with the Flag Smashers is twofold. It's both to, elevate his status and be like, hey, where can I get some of the super juice? Like that could be part of the story too. So it's very interesting.
I love that path. That this one is a battle, a power struggle, a literal power struggle. So feeling not good enough to be Steve Rogers, who was a super enhanced human, where he feels that the only way he could do his job is to take the best parts of him and enhance them. That would be fantastic. But what if that corrupts the mind? What if a specific version of the serum makes you a little bit edgier, makes you more selfish, something of that sort? I don't know John Walker's arc, so let's speculate. Let's dive into the crumbs. I want to know: what's all the details of John Walker? Does he become a villain once he's a super human? Does he? Is he a sleeper agent and doesn't know it? Does he get woken up with the Bucky activation hypnosis? What do you know, Cam?
Yeah, so like I said, John Walker gets his powers from basically underground kind of science group of mad scientists. They're using a group called Power Broker, and they give people super soldier serum, like their own version of it. It's not the super soldier serum that Captain America gets, to be clear. It's a different version of that, but basically gives them the same types of abilities. Superhuman enhanced strength, enhanced speed, enhanced agility, things like that. The things that you would expect a Captain America type person to have. But they also mess with people in a lot of ways. Like they give them drugs that, unbeknownst to them, basically make them mind controlled and things like that. So it's a shady group. So if they get introduced at some point, that's a red flag. If Power Broker comes into play, that's a concern. But yeah, I mean, like I said before, John Walker, he's super patriot, then he's Captain America, and then he's the U.S. agent. And, he does not get along with everybody, but he's not a bad dude. He just doesn't, his style is a little bit different. He doesn't jive with everybody. He likes to talk with his fists, and he isn't, he's a leader, but a leader in a very different way than a Steve Rogers. So like I said, he gets involved with a group called Force Works with Tony Stark, even though Tony Stark wants nothing to do with him being in that group. Scarlet Witch sort of ties the knots there to help get him on the team because she thinks he's a valuable asset. So he has an interesting past, but I definitely wouldn't call him a villain. And the character that we got introduced to in this episode, Lamar Hoskins, also goes through the power broker process and adopts the moniker of Battlestar, and fights alongside John Walker during his Captain America days, and then goes on to do more superhero things of his own. So I think, I see lots of things online about people hating these guys. For me, I can tell that we're kind of supposed to not trust these guys because we just haven't really been given reason to trust them. But I feel like in this episode, I don't hate John Walker too much. And maybe that's just because I kind of know who John Walker is from the comics a little bit, but John Walker and Lamar Hoskins are not rubbing me the wrong way in this episode. In fact, it just feels like it's a misunderstanding, and maybe the four of these guys, with the Winter Soldier and Falcon, can ultimately work together to accomplish the mission. But we'll see. Yeah,
I'm with you on that. I'm with you, and I just want to say that I love whoever is playing Lamar Hoskins.
That's a really good dynamic.
Similar to just Wyatt Russell just coming in after, a decade of the MCU and just fitting right in. Lamar Hoskins has that line. He's like, "Who are you?" "I'm Lamar Hoskins." It's so good. It's so good that they don't have any struggles being there on screen with these big monsters of the MCU, Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes. To which I'd also like to say, why are we struggling so hard with the fight of superhumans when they fought the aliens of the world, of the universe? I know there's always different level ups of different planets and different stages of fatigue and confusion and getting caught off guard. But ultimately, if you fought Thanos, wouldn't you think that you could fight a superhuman too?
Yeah, but they had 100 more people.
I got you.
Sure, Falcon, has been involved in some missions where they fought Crossbones at the beginning of Civil War, Age of Ultron. What am I saying? Maybe. No, Civil War. It's Civil War. They fight Crossbones. He's an enhanced human as well. So but I think the fact that there's no clear leader in that battle was a toughie because Falcon's trying to do his own thing, Bucky's trying to do his own thing, and here come John Walker and Lamar, and nobody's really comfortable with the situation. So I think part of the reason that they're just getting their tails whipped is that there's just no coordination whatsoever. But I think if they come up with a plan, they can certainly do it. But Falcon will have trouble with people who are just enhanced, I would think, and especially if they're ground-based. Especially... It looked like at some point Red Wing got destroyed in this episode.
Smashed to pieces.
So
yes,
that's a concern for him as well, I would think. It'll be interesting to see. But since they're going the route of John Walker not being a superhuman, Lamar Hoskins not being a superhuman to our knowledge, that makes this fight a little bit of a tougher battle for all of them.
I love what your insight there. I think you nailed it. There's no leader. They're fighting to figure out who is the leader in this duo. When there were three and they had Steve Rogers, it was always just clear. He just took the reins. He was Captain America. He created it. He was the trailblazer, and now they have to figure out, well, you're not going to say that you're the leader. I'm not going to say I'm the leader. What are we doing here? How do we move forward? So that part, when you really dissect it like that, a much more fascinating element to this episode. I feel like the direction didn't quite get there. It took us our entire episode to get there. So I feel like they have some clarifications to nail down for us in episode 3 and forward. What would you like to see? Is there anything that you're worried about going forward, or is there something that you really want to see in the next 4 episodes?
Well, I'm very interested in the Isaiah Bradley introduction. I think that's interesting for a lot of reasons. So first of all, they've kept Isaiah Bradley's storyline almost identical to the comics in every single way, in the sense that he was, a black army soldier who was experimented on, became a super soldier. In the comics, he actually, for a very small period of time, becomes Captain America, and then is... has a mission in Europe, which is successful. He's the only real, out of these black super soldiers that they experiment on, he's the only one who survives all the missions. And then he's promptly court-martialed for, stealing the Captain America suit to complete his mission. And so he spends some time in jail. And I think that they alluded to that here.
Wow.
And that's why he's a bit bitter. So they've kept that pretty much intact. But here's what's really interesting about Isaiah Bradley and more specifically his family. You've heard me talk about the Young Avengers a lot because they are laying tons of seeds for the Young Avengers.
Yes.
The young man who answered the door, in the captions, it just says boy. But if you look on IMDb, his name is Eli Bradley, which would make him Elijah Bradley, which would make him Isaiah Bradley's grandson and one of the founding members of the Young Avengers. So, who ends up in a more convoluted way, actually through a blood transfusion, he ends up becoming a super soldier. He has a near-death experience with the Young Avengers, because he in order to get in the Young Avengers, he's a really cool superhero called Patriot. He throws like ninja stars and has just a sick costume and a mask that covers his whole face. I mean, he is cool. He actually is like so wanting to be a hero that he lies to the Young Avengers and tells them he's a superhuman because he's Isaiah Bradley's grandson, but he actually has no abilities until he has a near-death experience and needs a blood transfusion from someone and gets it from his grandfather, Isaiah Bradley, and becomes a superhuman through that process. So,
oh my goodness,
we didn't see hardly any of Eli/Elijah Bradley in this episode, but I'm telling you, man, with Cassie Lang, Kate Bishop, Wiccan, Speed, Kang the Conqueror's coming into the fold, which has a very big role to play, and then maybe in the She-Hulk show they introduce Hulkling. I don't know, like, we're on a collision course with the Young Avengers, and it's only a matter of time at this point.
That's coming for sure, man. Oh,
so,
I missed
so
it.
to answer your original question of what I want to see more of, that's what I want more of. That's like
the Young Avengers.
I want the Young Avengers, and I want more of the Isaiah Bradley story. Like, I don't think they would have just introed him in this episode to not come full circle there. I think he deserves redemption in some way, and so I'm interested to see how they finish out that story arc.
And listen, Carl Lumbly, who plays Isaiah, he was an original cast member of Alias of J.J. Abrams' series in almost every episode. And oh my goodness, he is good. He is good, man. And so he deserves this. He hasn't been on a long-standing show like this of that caliber since then. He's 100% acted in 100 other wonderful projects. But man, to have him enter the MCU like this, like that would be so cool. He's a baller. He's the right man for the job. All right. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining us. We will chat with you next week after episode 3 drops on Disney Plus. Don't forget to check out our regular podcast series called Popcorn for Breakfast, where we dive into all sorts of different movies, the latest and greatest there. Our one we're going to play out with Rhetoric, our band here with original music, and we will talk to you later.
Peace.